World War II changed the world forever. From epic battles to incredible acts of courage, 100 facts reveal the science, strategy, and stories that shaped history. Get ready to uncover the untold truths and remarkable moments of the deadliest conflict the world has ever seen. Chapter 1. World War II began in 1939 when Germany invaded Poland, triggering a chain reaction that pulled nations across the globe into conflict. The world had never seen anything like it before. Battles erupted on multiple continents, involving millions of soldiers and civilians. Technology, strategy, and sheer human resilience collided in a war that changed history forever. Even the skies became battlefields, with aircraft defining new tactics. Chapter 2. The Blitzkrieg, or Lightning War, used speed, coordination, and surprise to overwhelm enemies. Tanks, planes, and infantry moved together with frightening precision. Germany's early victories stunned Europe. Cities fell in days instead of months, demonstrating the terrifying efficiency of modern warfare. Scientists studied these tactics, and military engineers pushed the limits of machinery and communication, forever reshaping how wars would be fought. Chapter 3. In 1940, Britain stood alone against the Axis powers. The Battle of Britain marked a pivotal moment where RAF pilots fought tirelessly to defend their homeland. Radar technology gave them an edge, detecting enemy aircraft before they reached London. Civilians took shelter in underground stations, showing resilience amid chaos. This battle proved that determination, innovation, and strategy could stop even the most formidable enemies. Chapter 4. Pearl Harbor, December 7, 1941, shocked the world. Japanese forces launched a surprise attack on the U.S. Pacific Fleet, drawing America into the war. Ships sank, planes were destroyed, and thousands lost their lives. The science of naval warfare, including aircraft carrier strategy, became central. This single event transformed global alliances, proving that one decisive strike could change the course of history forever. Chapter 5. The Eastern Front saw the largest and bloodiest battles in history. Germany's invasion of the Soviet Union in 1940 led to unimaginable suffering and heroism. Soldiers faced harsh winters, massive tank battles, and relentless artillery. Science and engineering played a key role: mechanized units, logistical planning, and even weather forecasting impacted survival. The resilience of human spirit under extreme conditions remains a remarkable lesson in history. Chapter 6. The Holocaust remains one of humanity's darkest chapters. Millions of Jews, Romani people, and others were systematically murdered. Concentration camps were horrifyingly efficient, demonstrating how ideology and technology combined for cruelty. Yet stories of survival, resistance, and courage emerged. Science, in medicine and documentation, later helped uncover the extent of atrocities, ensuring the world would never forget the lessons of prejudice and hatred. Chapter 7. D-Day, June 6, 1944, was the largest amphibious invasion in history. Allied forces stormed Normandy beaches to liberate occupied Europe. Planning required precise timing, advanced logistics, and innovative engineering, including floating harbors and specialized tanks. Soldiers faced brutal resistance, yet bravery and coordination turned the tide. This operation showed that meticulous planning, courage, and teamwork could overcome even the most fortified positions. Chapter 8. Code breaking played a silent but crucial role. At Bletchley Park, British cryptographers decrypted the German Enigma machine, saving countless lives. The science behind cryptography and early computing allowed the Allies to anticipate enemy moves. Each intercepted message became a puzzle, where logic and intuition combined to alter military outcomes. This invisible battle behind the scenes proved that intelligence could be as deadly as weapons. Chapter 9. The Pacific Theater saw island-hopping campaigns, with battles on remote islands like Iwo Jima and Guadalcanal. Harsh terrain, tropical diseases, and enemy fortifications tested soldiers' limits. Naval and air power were essential, and innovations like amphibious vehicles enabled progress. Each island captured became a stepping stone toward Japan, showing that strategy, science, and sheer determination could achieve victories in the most extreme conditions. Chapter 10. Atomic bombs ended the war in the Pacific in 1945. Hiroshima and Nagasaki faced devastation unseen before. The science of nuclear fission unleashed immense power, changing warfare forever. The decision remains controversial, yet it forced Japan's surrender and demonstrated humanity's capability for both destruction and innovation. Lessons from this moment shaped international policies, technology, and moral debates for decades to come. Chapter 11. The Battle of Stalingrad became a symbol of endurance and sacrifice. Urban warfare turned the city into a deadly maze of rubble. Soldiers fought house to house, while snipers and artillery made every street dangerous. Winter brought freezing temperatures that tested survival. Science of logistics and supply lines became crucial, as both sides struggled to maintain food, ammunition, and morale during one of the war's fiercest clashes. Chapter 12. Women played vital roles in World War II, taking positions in factories, hospitals, and even combat support. The Soviet Union deployed women as pilots, snipers, and medics, breaking traditional boundaries. Science and engineering careers opened up for them, accelerating technological advances. Their contributions not only supported the war effort, but also transformed social norms, proving that resilience and skill know no gender. Chapter 13. The Blitz destroyed London over 57 consecutive nights, testing civilians' endurance. Firefighters, volunteers, and emergency crews faced immense danger to save lives. Radar systems and air raid protocols helped reduce casualties. Despite destruction, people maintained daily routines, demonstrating human adaptability. This period highlighted how science, urban planning, and communal spirit could coexist even under relentless bombardment. Chapter 14. The Battle of Midway in 1942 marked a turning point in the Pacific. American forces, using intelligence and code-breaking, ambushed the Japanese fleet. Aircraft carriers, torpedoes, and dive bombers defined naval warfare's new era. Precision, timing, and understanding of enemy strategy led to a decisive victory. Science of navigation, mechanics, and aerial tactics proved critical in shaping outcomes far from land. Chapter 15. Propaganda shaped perceptions and morale during the war. Radio broadcasts, posters, and films motivated citizens and soldiers alike. Psychological science influenced messaging, ensuring it was persuasive and memorable. Even subtle cues in imagery and language could sway public opinion. Governments realized that battles weren't just fought on fields, but also in minds, proving communication could be as powerful as weapons. Chapter 16. The siege of Leningrad lasted 872 days, one of history's longest sieges. Civilians endured starvation, cold, and relentless bombardment. Science of rationing, urban agriculture, and medical improvisation became survival tools. People scavenged, created substitutes, and adapted to extreme deprivation. This chapter of history demonstrates how human ingenuity and community resilience can endure unimaginable adversity. Chapter 17. Aircraft innovation accelerated during World War II. Fighters like the Spitfire and Messerschmitt combined aerodynamics, engines, and weaponry to dominate skies. Jet propulsion experiments began, showing how physics could revolutionize combat. Pilots trained relentlessly, relying on both skill and scientific principles of flight. Each engagement tested limits, pushing aviation technology into uncharted territory faster than ever before. Chapter 18. The North African campaign tested strategy in deserts. Armies faced harsh heat, sandstorms, and supply challenges. Tanks, artillery, and intelligence determined control over vast landscapes. Engineers built makeshift roads and water systems to sustain troops. Science in navigation, mechanics, and logistics became vital, showing that understanding terrain and technology could overcome even the most hostile environments. Chapter 19. Partisan movements across Europe disrupted Axis supply lines. Resistance fighters used guerrilla tactics, sabotage, and intelligence to aid Allied forces. Science of explosives, radio communication, and reconnaissance enhanced their effectiveness. Ordinary civilians became heroes, proving that strategy and bravery were not exclusive to professional armies. Small groups could shift the momentum of much larger conflicts with ingenuity and courage. Chapter 20. The Yalta Conference in 1945 shaped the post-war world. Leaders Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin negotiated borders, occupation zones, and international cooperation. Science of diplomacy, logistics, and reconstruction planning influenced decisions. This meeting showed that the war was not just about battles, but also about shaping the future. Political strategy, compromise, and foresight would determine the next decades of global relations. Chapter 21. The Warsaw Uprising of 1944 was a bold attempt by Polish resistance to liberate the city from German occupation. Fighters endured limited weapons, food shortages, and relentless attacks. Science of communications, makeshift medical care, and urban tactics played a role in their strategy. Though ultimately suppressed, the uprising became a symbol of courage and determination against overwhelming odds. Chapter 22. The Manhattan Project secretly developed the first atomic bombs in the U.S. Scientists from multiple nations collaborated, applying physics, chemistry, and engineering. The project pushed technology and human understanding of nuclear fission to its limits. It demonstrated that scientific breakthroughs could directly influence warfare, politics, and the fate of millions in a single, world-altering moment. Chapter 23. The Battle of Kursk in 1943 was the largest tank battle in history. Thousands of armored vehicles clashed across vast fields. Engineers and strategists studied terrain, armor, and artillery effectiveness to gain advantage. Anti-tank weapons and mechanized infantry became crucial. This battle showed how science, planning, and sheer numbers combined to shape outcomes in modern mechanized warfare. Chapter 24. Rationing became a global necessity during World War II. Civilians learned to stretch limited food supplies, using substitutes and creative cooking. Science of nutrition and preservation guided these strategies, preventing mass starvation. Governments issued guidelines, and people adapted, demonstrating resilience and resourcefulness. Everyday survival became a lesson in human ingenuity under pressure. Chapter 25. The Battle of Monte Cassino in Italy was a brutal fight over a strategic monastery. Soldiers endured mountains, heavy artillery, and entrenched defenders. Engineering knowledge helped construct bridges, tunnels, and supply routes. Science in explosives and logistics proved essential. The battle highlighted how terrain, technology, and determination combined in intense, localized conflicts that shaped broader campaigns. Chapter 26. The Pacific island of Okinawa became a fierce battleground in 1945. Kamikaze attacks, artillery, and entrenched positions made every advance costly. Medical teams experimented with triage and evacuation methods under fire. Aircraft and naval support were critical. This battle illustrated the extremes of human endurance, strategy, and innovation, showing how modern war demanded both courage and science. Chapter 27. Radar technology transformed naval and aerial warfare. Detecting enemy aircraft and ships before visual contact gave strategic advantages. Scientists refined radio waves, signal processing, and early warning systems. These invisible eyes saved countless lives and allowed precise strikes. Radar proved that technology could tilt the balance of power, often without firing a single shot, changing the nature of modern combat forever. Chapter 28. The Siege of Tobruk in North Africa tested Allied defense against Rommel's forces. Soldiers endured desert heat, supply shortages, and constant attacks. Engineering efforts built fortifications, bunkers, and supply lines. Science in medicine, rationing, and desert survival became essential. Tobruk demonstrated that resilience, planning, and technical knowledge could sustain a prolonged defense against a superior force. Chapter 29. Amphibious landings defined key Allied operations. D-Day, Sicily, and other invasions relied on specialized landing craft, engineering, and precise coordination. Scientists and engineers created floating bridges, tanks, and vehicles capable of navigating treacherous waters. Success required perfect timing, planning, and understanding of tides and currents. These operations showcased how innovation could make the impossible achievable in war. Chapter 30. The Siege of Bostonia during the Battle of the Bulge was a fight in freezing winter conditions. Soldiers faced snow, frostbite, and limited supplies while holding critical positions. Whether science, logistics, and air resupply became lifelines. Despite harsh conditions, determination and strategic planning allowed them to resist encirclement. Bostonia showed how environmental science and human resilience could influence battlefield outcomes. Chapter 31. The Battle of El Alamein turned the tide in North Africa. Allied forces, led by Montgomery, halted Rommel's advance. Tank maneuvers, artillery, and intelligence shaped the victory. Science of desert navigation, vehicle engineering, and logistics was vital. The battle highlighted that knowledge, preparation, and coordination could overcome even a highly skilled and experienced enemy in harsh, unforgiving environments. Chapter 32. Submarine warfare defined the Atlantic campaigns. German U-boats threatened Allied supply lines, while convoys relied on sonar and depth charges. Science of acoustics, radar, and signal intelligence allowed detection and counterattacks. Merchant sailors and naval crews faced constant danger. This silent struggle beneath the waves demonstrated how technology, strategy, and human endurance combined in unseen yet decisive battles. Chapter 33. The Siege of Sevastopol in Crimea demonstrated urban and coastal warfare complexity. Artillery, naval bombardments, and trench tactics dominated. Engineering teams built fortifications, tunnels, and supply networks. Science of ballistics, structural damage, and logistics influenced decisions. Despite destruction, defenders held out for months, proving that knowledge, resilience, and human willpower could prolong resistance even under overwhelming odds. Chapter 34. The invasion of Italy in 1943 opened a new front. Allied forces faced mountains, rivers, and entrenched defenders. Engineers constructed bridges, roads, and supply lines. Medical science adapted to treat injuries in rugged terrain. The campaign combined innovation, strategy, and endurance, showing that geography, science, and human determination were all critical in overcoming natural and man-made obstacles during war. Chapter 35. The bombing campaigns over Germany targeted factories, transportation, and cities. Precision bombing relied on navigation, weather science, and intelligence. Aircraft crews endured anti-aircraft fire, long missions, and fatigue. While controversial, these operations disrupted enemy production and demonstrated how technology and strategy could reshape industrial warfare, making science a decisive factor beyond the battlefield itself. Chapter 36. The Lend-Lease Act allowed the U.S. to supply allies with weapons, vehicles, and food. Logistics, engineering, and production science made mass supply possible across oceans. Trucks, tanks, and planes reached distant theaters, sustaining resistance against Axis powers. This act showed how industrial capacity, technological efficiency, and global coordination could alter the outcome of a conflict even before direct combat involvement. Chapter 37. The Battle of Anzio in Italy tested amphibious and urban warfare skills. Soldiers landed behind enemy lines but faced entrenched defenders. Engineering teams built roads, supply depots, and artillery positions. Science in planning, logistics, and medical care enabled survival and progress. This battle emphasized that courage, strategy, and technical know-how were crucial in challenging, high-stakes operations. Chapter 38. V-2 rockets marked the beginning of modern missile technology. Developed by Germany, these rockets used liquid fuel propulsion and gyroscopic guidance. They caused destruction in London and Antwerp, but also inspired post-war space programs. Science and engineering advanced rapidly under wartime pressures. The V-2 demonstrated that technological breakthroughs could emerge from conflict, with long-lasting effects beyond immediate military use. Chapter 39. The Battle of Iwo Jima in 1945 became iconic for courage and strategy. Marines faced volcanic terrain, entrenched defenses, and relentless fire. Engineers and planners created landing zones and supply chains under extreme risk. Science of explosives, medical triage, and logistics allowed forces to advance. The battle symbolized how preparation, innovation, and human endurance could achieve victory in seemingly impossible conditions. Chapter 40. The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising of 1943 displayed remarkable resistance under unimaginable oppression. Jewish fighters used smuggled weapons, tunnels, and guerrilla tactics against the Nazis. Science of planning, communication, and explosives was adapted under severe scarcity. Though ultimately crushed, the uprising remains a testament to bravery, ingenuity, and the enduring human desire for freedom, even in the darkest circumstances. Chapter 41. The Battle of Leyte Gulf in 1944 was the largest naval battle in history. Aircraft carriers, battleships, and submarines clashed across the Philippines. Science of naval engineering, radar, and aviation coordination defined the outcome. Strategic planning and intelligence allowed the Allies to cut Japanese supply lines. This decisive victory demonstrated how technology and strategy could dominate vast oceanic theaters. Chapter 42. The Winter War between Finland and the Soviet Union showcased resilience against overwhelming odds. Finns used skis, camouflage, and knowledge of terrain to ambush Soviet forces. Science of cold weather survival, improvised engineering, and logistics became crucial. Though outnumbered, Finnish forces inflicted heavy losses, proving that ingenuity and environmental awareness could counter sheer numerical superiority. Chapter 43. The Battle of Arnhem in Operation Market Garden aimed to capture key bridges in the Netherlands. Airborne troops faced heavy resistance and miscommunication. Engineering efforts attempted to secure bridges and maintain supply lines. Science in planning, coordination, and communication was essential but partially failed. Arnhem illustrated that even carefully designed operations could be derailed by unforeseen variables and the chaos of war. Chapter 44. The Siege of Budapest in 1944–45 involved intense urban combat. Both Axis and Soviet forces fought for control of streets, tunnels, and fortifications. Medical and logistical science helped sustain defenders amid shortages. Engineering teams reinforced positions and constructed escape routes. This siege highlighted that human endurance, strategic planning, and technical innovation were key to survival and success in urban warfare. Chapter 45. The Warsaw Uprising's communication relied on underground radio networks and couriers. Fighters adapted technology under extreme conditions. Science of encryption, signal intelligence, and improvised transmission played a role. Despite isolation and limited resources, they coordinated attacks, demonstrating how technical ingenuity and determination could maximize impact in asymmetric warfare. Chapter 46. The Battle of Tarawa in 1943 revealed the challenges of amphibious assaults on fortified islands. Coral reefs, tides, and entrenched defenses caused heavy casualties. Engineering and planning innovations, including landing craft and demolition techniques, were crucial. Science of terrain analysis, timing, and logistics influenced success. The lessons learned shaped future Pacific operations, improving survival rates and operational efficiency. Chapter 47. During World War II, espionage shaped critical outcomes. Agents gathered intelligence, sabotaged operations, and protected secrets. Science of cryptography, stealth, and signal interception enhanced effectiveness. Organizations like the OSS and SOE coordinated behind enemy lines. Spies demonstrated that strategic knowledge and human cunning could rival weapons, influencing battles and even entire campaigns without a single shot being fired. Chapter 48. The Battle of Monte Cassino involved Allied bombing of historic sites. Engineers and planners targeted enemy positions while minimizing cultural destruction, though damage was inevitable. Science of explosives, trajectory calculations, and reconnaissance guided operations. The battle highlighted how precision, technology, and ethical considerations intersected, illustrating the complexity of modern warfare beyond simple attack and defense. Chapter 49. The Siege of Bastogne during the Ardennes offensive required innovative resupply methods. Whether grounded aircraft, forcing ingenuity in distribution of food, ammunition, and medical aid. Science of logistics, meteorology, and aviation coordination saved lives and maintained morale. Bastogne demonstrated how environmental understanding and adaptive planning could influence the survival and effectiveness of troops under extreme conditions. Chapter 50. The Japanese kamikaze strategy relied on suicide attacks from aircraft to target Allied ships. Pilots used precision and courage to maximize impact. Engineering science allowed planes to carry heavy explosives efficiently. Although devastating, these attacks revealed desperation and ingenuity under extreme pressure. Kamikaze tactics forced the Allies to adapt defensive strategies and technology, reshaping naval operations in the Pacific theater. Chapter 51. The Battle of Singapore in 1942 ended with a dramatic British surrender to Japanese forces. Dense jungle, artillery, and coordinated attacks overwhelmed defenders. Science of fortifications, communication, and logistics played roles but couldn't prevent collapse. The fall shocked the world, showing that even seemingly strong positions could fail under strategy, planning, and enemy innovation, forever altering the balance in Southeast Asia. Chapter 52. The Enigma machine gave Germany encrypted communication, initially thought unbreakable. Allied cryptographers, using logic and early computing machines, deciphered these codes. Science of mathematics, algorithms, and mechanical engineering made it possible. This intelligence breakthrough allowed the Allies to anticipate movements, saving countless lives. It showed that knowledge and innovation could outweigh brute force in warfare. Chapter 53. The Battle of Okinawa involved fierce kamikaze attacks and entrenched defenses. Soldiers faced tropical diseases, steep cliffs, and heavy artillery. Engineering and logistics created supply lines and landing zones. Science in medicine, explosives, and amphibious strategy was crucial. The struggle demonstrated how environmental understanding, planning, and human courage could determine success in one of the Pacific War's deadliest conflicts. Chapter 54. The Siege of Leningrad pushed civilians and soldiers to extremes of starvation and cold. Urban planning, rationing, and food science became survival tools. Despite unimaginable hardship, residents maintained morale and improvised methods to sustain life. The siege highlighted the resilience of human spirit and the importance of scientific thinking in crisis, showing that knowledge could save lives even in total adversity. Chapter 55. Operation Torch in 1942 marked Allied landings in North Africa. Coordination between sea, air, and land forces was critical. Engineering teams constructed supply depots, airfields, and roads. Science of navigation, logistics, and military strategy ensured success. The operation demonstrated that combined efforts and technical planning could achieve strategic goals, even across challenging terrain and against experienced opposition. Chapter 56. The Battle of the Bulge tested winter warfare skills. Soldiers endured snow, frostbite, and surprise attacks. Engineering teams built fortifications and supply routes under harsh conditions. Science in meteorology, logistics, and communication helped sustain forces. Despite initial setbacks, Allied resilience turned the offensive around. This battle showed how adaptation and knowledge of environment could influence large-scale military operations. Chapter 57. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki relied on decades of physics research. Fission reactions released energy equivalent to thousands of tons of TNT. Scientific principles of chain reactions and material enrichment were applied under extreme secrecy. These events ended World War II in the Pacific, showing that scientific innovation could have immediate, catastrophic, and world-changing consequences. Chapter 58. The Normandy landings involved precise planning, deception, and engineering. Dummy equipment, fake radio traffic, and camouflage misled German forces. Science of tides, weather, and ballistics dictated timing and strategy. Amphibious vehicles, bridges, and specialized tanks enabled the advance. D-Day illustrated how meticulous preparation, environmental knowledge, and technical innovation could turn an ambitious plan into success. Chapter 59. Partisan fighters across occupied Europe sabotaged railways, factories, and communication lines. Knowledge of terrain, explosives, and timing allowed small groups to disrupt much larger forces. Science of engineering, logistics, and improvised weaponry enhanced their effectiveness. These efforts proved that intelligence, courage, and ingenuity could impact broader military campaigns beyond traditional battlefields. Chapter 60. The Siege of Sevastopol tested the limits of coastal defense. Artillery, fortifications, and naval support created a deadly environment for attackers. Engineers reinforced structures and repaired supply routes under fire. Science of ballistics, construction, and logistics was critical. Though the city eventually fell, defenders demonstrated how strategic planning, technical skill, and resilience could prolong resistance against overwhelming forces. Chapter 61. The Battle of Berlin in 1945 marked the final major offensive in Europe. Soviet forces advanced through streets, encountering fierce German resistance. Engineering teams cleared obstacles and repaired bridges under fire. Science of urban warfare, artillery targeting, and logistics influenced success. The fall of Berlin ended Nazi control, showing how strategy, coordination, and technological understanding could decide a war's ultimate outcome. Chapter 62. The Atlantic convoys were lifelines for Britain. Merchant ships transported food, weapons, and troops while facing U-boat attacks. Science of sonar, radar, and convoy tactics enhanced survival. Sailors endured storms and enemy fire, relying on both skill and technology. The campaign illustrated how coordination, innovation, and perseverance could maintain critical supply lines across hostile oceans. Chapter 63. The Battle of El Alamein demonstrated the power of intelligence and planning. Allies used aerial reconnaissance, signals, and radar to predict enemy movements. Engineering units built fortifications, roads, and supply points. Science of desert navigation, logistics, and weaponry contributed to victory. The battle marked a turning point in North Africa, proving that knowledge and preparation could overcome a skilled, experienced opponent. Chapter 64. The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising relied on secret networks and improvisation. Fighters used tunnels, homemade explosives, and smuggled weapons to resist Nazi forces. Science of communication, timing, and sabotage enhanced effectiveness. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, their courage disrupted enemy operations and inspired resistance movements. The uprising highlighted how human ingenuity and determination could challenge seemingly unstoppable forces. Chapter 65. The Battle of Coral Sea was the first naval engagement fought entirely by aircraft. Aircraft carriers and planes determined outcomes without ships exchanging fire directly. Science of aviation, navigation, and reconnaissance was critical. The battle showed that modern warfare depended on technology and coordination, not just numbers of ships, and it set a precedent for the Pacific theater's future conflicts. Chapter 66. The Siege of Malta involved relentless bombing and blockade by Axis forces. Civilians and soldiers endured scarcity, disease, and destruction. Engineering and logistical planning enabled airfields, water, and food distribution. Science of weather prediction and radar assisted defense. Malta's resistance proved that strategic positioning, innovation, and human resilience could withstand prolonged attacks under extreme conditions. Chapter 67. Operation Husky, the invasion of Sicily, combined sea, air, and land operations. Engineering teams constructed roads, bridges, and supply chains. Science of amphibious strategy, weather, and logistics dictated timing and effectiveness. Success allowed the Allies to advance into mainland Italy, showing how coordination, preparation, and technical knowledge could transform ambitious plans into decisive victories. Chapter 68. The Battle of Monte Cassino tested precision bombing techniques. Allied forces aimed to destroy enemy positions while preserving cultural landmarks, though results varied. Science of explosives, trajectory calculation, and reconnaissance guided attacks. The battle highlighted the intersection of technology, ethics, and strategy in modern warfare, emphasizing that planning and knowledge could shape outcomes beyond brute force. Chapter 69. The Pacific island hopping strategy targeted key islands to bypass heavily fortified positions. Engineers built airstrips and supply bases, while troops relied on amphibious vehicles and medical support. Science of logistics, terrain analysis, and navigation ensured success. Each captured island became a stepping stone, demonstrating how strategy, innovation, and environmental knowledge could achieve objectives with minimal unnecessary losses. Chapter 70. The Siege of Bastonia required adaptive winter warfare. Soldiers endured snow, frostbite, and supply shortages while holding critical positions. Engineering and medical science enabled fortifications, evacuation, and survival. Despite harsh conditions, determination and strategic planning allowed the Allies to resist encirclement. Bastonia showed that environmental understanding, human resilience, and technical knowledge could influence the outcome of pivotal battles. Chapter 71. The Battle of the Philippine Sea in 1944 earned the nickname The Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. American pilots decimated Japanese aircraft using superior training and radar-assisted interception. Science of aviation, targeting, and navigation gave the Allies a decisive edge. The battle demonstrated how technological advantage combined with skill could turn overwhelming odds into resounding victory in the Pacific theater. Chapter 72. The Siege of Leningrad tested human endurance against starvation and cold. Civilians relied on rationing, underground shelters, and improvisation. Science of nutrition, logistics, and urban planning became essential survival tools. Despite extreme deprivation, residents maintained morale and ingenuity. Leningrad illustrated how knowledge, creativity, and resilience could sustain a population through one of the deadliest sieges in history. Chapter 73. The Battle of Tarawa in 1943 exposed the challenges of amphibious assaults. Coral reefs and fortified defenses caused heavy casualties. Engineers developed specialized landing craft and demolition techniques. Science of tidal calculations, logistics, and fortification analysis influenced planning. Lessons from Tarawa shaped future Pacific campaigns, proving that adaptation, preparation, and technical innovation were critical for operational success. Chapter 74. The Japanese attack on Midway relied on surprise and strategy, but was countered by code breaking. American intelligence, radar, and aircraft coordination turned the tide. Science of signals, reconnaissance, and planning allowed precise targeting. Midway demonstrated that knowledge and anticipation could outweigh numerical or positional advantages, becoming a turning point in the Pacific War. Chapter 75. The Siege of Sevastopol involved intense coastal and urban combat. Defenders utilized fortifications, artillery, and naval support. Engineering and logistics maintained supply lines under constant bombardment. Science of ballistics, construction, and tactical planning influenced every engagement. Though the city fell, its resistance highlighted the importance of preparation, technical skill, and human endurance in protracted conflicts. Chapter 76. The Battle of Monte Cassino in Italy demonstrated the complexity of combined operations. Allied forces faced mountains, entrenched defenders, and fortified positions. Engineers built bridges, roads, and supply depots. Science of explosives, logistics, and strategy guided attacks. The battle emphasized that victory depended not only on manpower, but also on innovation, planning, and the clever application of technology in challenging environments. Chapter 77. The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising highlighted human courage under extreme oppression. Fighters used tunnels, smuggled weapons, and improvised explosives. Science of communication and timing enhanced effectiveness despite scarce resources. Though outmatched, their resistance disrupted enemy operations and inspired future movements. The uprising demonstrated that ingenuity and bravery could challenge seemingly invincible forces in desperate circumstances. Chapter 78. The Battle of Iwo Jima in 1945 required amphibious landings on volcanic terrain. Marines faced entrenched defenders and relentless fire. Engineers created supply routes and landing zones under danger. Science of explosives, logistics, and medical triage ensured progress. The battle symbolized how preparation, innovation, and human endurance could achieve victory even in nearly impossible conditions, becoming an iconic moment in military history. Chapter 79. The North African campaign tested strategy and endurance in deserts. Soldiers endured heat, sandstorms, and long supply lines. Engineering teams built roads, fortifications, and water systems. Science of logistics, navigation, and mechanics proved essential. The campaign highlighted how understanding terrain, adapting to conditions, and applying technical knowledge could overcome environmental and enemy challenges in large-scale warfare. Chapter 80. The Battle of Arnhem in Operation Market Garden was an ambitious airborne assault that partially failed due to miscommunication. Troops relied on parachutes, gliders, and quick engineering fixes. Science of coordination, planning, and reconnaissance played critical roles. Arnhem illustrated that even well-designed operations could be disrupted by unforeseen variables, emphasizing the importance of adaptability and innovation in wartime strategy. Chapter 81. The Battle of Guadalcanal in 1942–43 marked the first major Allied offensive in the Pacific. Jungle terrain, disease, and supply challenges tested soldiers. Engineers built airfields and supply routes under fire. Science of logistics, medicine, and navigation allowed sustained operations. Guadalcanal demonstrated that strategy, preparation, and adaptability were as important as combat skill in winning prolonged campaigns. Chapter 82. The Luftwaffe's bombing campaigns over Britain targeted cities and industry. Radar, anti-aircraft artillery, and night fighter tactics countered attacks. Science of signal detection, aerodynamics, and communication was vital. Civilians endured nightly bombings yet adapted with shelters and routines. The Blitz showed how technology, planning, and resilience could influence morale and the outcome of strategic campaigns. Chapter 83. The Battle of Kursk in 1943 was the largest tank battle in history. Thousands of armored vehicles engaged across open fields. Engineers reinforced positions and maintained supply lines. Science of armor, ballistics, and logistics shaped outcomes. Kursk proved that preparation, tactical innovation, and mechanical advantage could determine victory in mechanized warfare, highlighting the role of technology in modern battlefields. Chapter 84. The Warsaw Uprising relied on clandestine networks, couriers, and smuggled weapons. Fighters used urban terrain and improvised explosives to resist German forces. Science of timing, coordination, and communication improved effectiveness despite scarcity. Though ultimately suppressed, the uprising inspired resistance across Europe. It highlighted that courage, ingenuity, and strategic use of resources could challenge seemingly insurmountable power. Chapter 85. The Battle of Midway was fought entirely by aircraft over the ocean. American forces, aided by code-breaking, anticipated Japanese movements. Science of navigation, aviation, and radar ensured precision strikes. The battle shifted momentum in the Pacific, proving that intelligence, technology, and timing could outweigh numbers, transforming naval warfare forever. Chapter 86. The Siege of Malta in 1940–42 tested endurance under relentless Axis attacks. Civilians and military personnel relied on rationing, water management, and engineering efforts to sustain defenses. Science of weather, radar, and supply logistics was critical. Malta's resistance demonstrated how strategy, innovation, and human resilience could overcome prolonged adversity in isolated conditions. Chapter 87. The Battle of Anzio in 1944 was a challenging amphibious landing in Italy. Troops faced entrenched defenders and logistical obstacles. Engineering teams constructed roads, bridges, and fortifications. Science of planning, coordination, and medical care enabled survival. The campaign emphasized that success depended on preparation, adaptation, and technical skill as much as bravery. Chapter 88. The Japanese kamikaze strategy relied on precision and sacrifice to damage Allied ships. Engineers developed aircraft capable of carrying explosives efficiently. Science of aerodynamics and targeting increased effectiveness. Kamikaze attacks forced changes in naval defense strategy and technology, illustrating how desperation and ingenuity could create new challenges and influence outcomes in warfare. Chapter 89. The Manhattan Project secretly developed the first atomic bombs. Scientists combined physics, chemistry, and engineering under extreme secrecy. Fission reactions released immense destructive energy. The project ended the Pacific War, proving that scientific breakthroughs could have immediate and world-changing consequences, demonstrating the profound impact of technology on human history. Chapter 90. The Battle of Leyte Gulf was the largest naval engagement ever. Aircraft carriers, battleships, and submarines clashed across the Philippines. Science of naval engineering, aviation, and communication shaped victory. Strategic planning and intelligence cut Japanese supply lines. Leyte Gulf showed how technology, coordination, and knowledge could dominate even the largest theaters of war. Chapter 91. The Battle of Iwo Jima required Marines to navigate volcanic terrain and fortified positions. Engineers built landing zones and supply routes under fire. Science of explosives, medical triage, and amphibious strategy ensured progress. The battle highlighted preparation, innovation, and human endurance, showing how meticulous planning and courage could achieve success under seemingly impossible conditions. Chapter 92. The Siege of Sevastopol involved relentless artillery bombardments and urban combat. Defenders reinforced fortifications and maintained supply lines under pressure. Science of ballistics, engineering, and logistics played critical roles. Though the city eventually fell, the siege demonstrated how preparation, technical skill, and human resilience could prolong resistance against overwhelming forces. Chapter 93. The Battle of Okinawa saw extreme kamikaze attacks and entrenched Japanese defenses. Troops endured disease, rough terrain, and heavy fire. Engineering and logistics created supply lines and landing zones. Science of medicine, explosives, and amphibious operations enabled advancement. The battle illustrated how environmental awareness, planning, and technological adaptation were critical in high-casualty conflicts. Chapter 94. The Battle of Berlin marked the war's final major European conflict. Soviet forces advanced through heavily defended streets. Engineers repaired bridges and cleared obstacles under fire. Science of urban combat, artillery targeting, and logistics influenced success. The fall of Berlin ended Nazi rule, proving how strategy, coordination, and technological understanding could determine the outcome of a war. Chapter 95. The Battle of the Bulge challenged soldiers with winter conditions, snow, and surprise attacks. Engineering teams constructed fortifications and managed supply routes. Science of meteorology, logistics, and communication helped sustain forces. Adaptation and resilience turned the offensive around. The battle demonstrated how environmental knowledge and planning could influence the outcome of large-scale military operations. Chapter 96. The Siege of Leningrad tested human endurance under starvation and cold. Civilians used rationing, underground shelters, and ingenuity to survive. Science of nutrition, urban planning, and logistics became essential. Residents maintained morale despite extreme hardship, proving that knowledge, creativity, and resilience could sustain communities through one of history's deadliest sieges. Chapter 97. The Battle of El Alamein relied on intelligence, planning, and logistics. Allied forces used reconnaissance, radar, and signals to predict enemy moves. Engineering teams maintained supply lines and fortifications. Science of desert navigation, mechanics, and tactical strategy contributed to victory. The battle marked a turning point in North Africa, showing how preparation and technical knowledge could overcome a skilled opponent. Chapter 98. The Battle of Midway was a decisive Pacific engagement fought entirely by aircraft. American forces, aided by code-breaking and radar, anticipated Japanese movements. Science of aviation, navigation, and intelligence enabled precise strikes. The battle shifted momentum, proving that knowledge, technological advantage, and timing could outweigh numerical superiority and reshape naval warfare. Chapter 99. The Manhattan Project developed the first atomic bombs using nuclear fission. Scientists applied physics, chemistry, and engineering to unleash immense destructive energy. The bombs ended the Pacific War, demonstrating how scientific breakthroughs could have immediate, catastrophic, and world-changing consequences. Technology became a decisive factor, showing the power of innovation to alter the course of history. Chapter 100. The final surrender of Japan in 1945 officially ended World War II. Diplomacy, strategy, and scientific developments, including the atomic bomb, shaped this outcome. Millions of lives were affected, and global alliances were redefined. The war left lasting lessons in technology, human resilience, and strategy, proving that knowledge, preparation, and innovation can determine the fate of nations. That's 100 facts about World War II, lessons in courage, strategy, and innovation that still echo today. History teaches us the cost of conflict and the power of human resilience. Thanks for watching, and remember to honor the past as we shape the future.